Welcome back now to our Real America video clip of the day. Take a look at this. A Hollywood-style Trump sign was put up overnight in Los Angeles. The sign placed on a hillside right along a huge freeway. If you know LA at all, the 405 near Sepulveda Pass. Around 9 a.m. though, you can see the workers here. They came in to take it down, although tens of thousands of commuters had already made their way to work and seen the large letters saying Trump. Now, that's pretty surprising considering Hollywood, of course, is dominated by liberals and has been for decades. So I wonder who put that up last night. Maybe this next guest had something to do with it. Our special guest tonight is a man who knows all too well about the dangers of playing in the swamp. He's been in the game for over 5 decades, a good ally and confidant to the president, Roger Stone, once again joining Real America. Hey, Roger, how are you, sir?
Delighted to be with you.
You weren't in California last night, were you?
No, actually, I wasn't. You know, it was a great prank, but at this point, I think the key is more detailed communications. Just saying the president's name is a celebration out there because of all the crazed lefties, but I'd like to see more about the president's Second Chance Act juxtaposed with Joe Biden's role in the war on drugs. You had a great segment here, but I think the thing people need to understand is Joe Biden, as chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, wrote the laws that require the harsh mandatory penalties for the first-time nonviolent crime of possessions of small amounts of drugs. And this law, over time, has proved to be a failure. It's responsible for the mass incarceration of hundreds of thousands, if not 1 million by now, of young black people who are not violent criminals. And who is it that's giving these people and those much older trapped in the bowels of our penal system a second chance at life because of Bill Clinton and Joe Biden's draconian failed drug law? It's President Donald Trump in his Second Chance Act. To me, this is one of the most important issues in this campaign. And I hope the Trump campaign has the good sense to go on urban radio and let people know this, because African Americans buy the idea that Joe Biden was ever some kind of civil rights advocate in his entire life. He opposed the integration of the Wilmington school system. He voted with the hardcore segregationists against every busing bill. He's made derogatory comments about African Americans, and he's responsible for this horrific law, which, by the way, Kamala Harris was more than happy to enforce with zeal, locking up thousands of black people for the nonviolent crime of possession, and in many cases, supporting their serving time longer than their sentences so the state could make use of their cheap labor.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that the VP candidate on the Democratic ticket, a Indian and Jamaican, I believe, is her heritage, put more black and brown people in jail for longer terms in the state of California when she was the AG. But mysteriously, a lot of those negative articles that used to be out there about her just a few months ago are now gone. So if people actually wanted to just search the web and look for her record, you can't even find it anymore. But I'm so glad you brought up the crime bill, Roger, because that is something I hammer on this show, is that forget the racist comments Joe's made since the 70s. They're out there. You just talked about the segment. I aired a bunch of those comments. Forget all those. Let's look at the crime bill. Look at what the co-author that pushed the crime bill through in '94 did to the black and brown community. And this is the candidate that Democrats put up for a year of change and unity and talking about systemic racism. And this is your candidate? I'm blown away that people cannot see this as the truth.
Well, the problem, of course, is that it's only programs like Real America that is laying the facts out for the people. You won't read or hear on any other mainstream corporate-owned media the truth of the so-called Biden bill. Joe used to brag and call it the Biden bill. During the early primaries in New Hampshire, he argued with the voter that it's been a great success. It's ruined lives, ruined families, cost taxpayers billions to incarcerate and feed people who belong in drug treatment programs, not in prison. And they're 88% African American. These are facts. You played that great clip by the president pointing it out, but You can find it here. You can find it on OAN. You can find it on Real America. There may be a handful of other outlets, but the corporate media doesn't tell you the truth about Joe Biden and civil rights.
No,
And
I
they
know.
never talk about the Second Chance Act, which is one of the most courageous things the president has done. Barack Obama had both houses of Congress, and he did nothing on criminal justice reform.
Yeah, that's what
Donald
kills me,
Trump
Roger.
has delivered on this issue.
Yeah, first black president in the history of our nation, and you had 8 years. Joe's now, of course, running for president. You had 8 years as the VP. You had the president's ear. You could have just leaned over and said something to him, and you guys did nothing for the black community, and you expect us to believe that President Trump has done nothing when, before COVID, you had all-time low for unemployment in the black and Hispanic community and Asian communities. You had an all-time low for the poverty level for the black and Hispanic communities. There were all these positives going. The opportunity zones, which the president pushed through, I might add, besides the Second Chance Act. There was so many things he's done in 3.5 years when Joe and Obama had 8 and did nothing. And when you try to get someone on the left side, and I try to have civil discussions with them, please show me where legislation, where bills, where executive orders were created that helped the black community in those 8 years of an Obama-Biden administration. They go silent, they attack Trump, and they go, but he's a racist, he's a bigot, he's a racist. Okay, show me the proof. Show me where he did legislation, where he has made actual comments like we just showed you, and you don't hear it. I mean, that comment made on September 15th, Roger, you heard us play a minute ago, about he was able to stay locked in his basement because some black woman was stocking the shelves. Could you imagine if President Trump said that?
Well, this is the same guy who said the integration of the Wilmington school systems would create a racial jungle, and that he didn't want his daughter going to school in a jungle. You can't get more offensive than that. But as you point out, it's not just words that matter, it's deeds. President Richard Nixon made derogatory comments about Jews. He also saved Israel from annihilation single-handedly in the 1973 Yom Kippur War. And Golda Meir said, never mind words, deeds tell you about the man. Well, Joe Biden's deeds tell you that he is a racist, and he is pushed and is responsible for the very law that has mass incarcerated more black people than anyone else on the national political scene other than Bill Clinton. And that's just a fact, but it's a fact you won't hear in the mainstream media.
Yep.
And that's why it's important that the Trump campaign get this message in front of African Americans. The president has a unique opportunity to score the highest level ever among both Hispanics and African Americans based on his record. But they have to know his record and the record of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris before that can happen.
Roger, not to make light of a bad situation from a while back in your life, but I heard the dog barking. Do you want to check the door and see if the FBI's there?
That's the Free Roger Stone dog chorus, and they always like to chime in at the worst possible time. But
That's okay. I got an ankle biter at home that does it all the time, but I don't have to. Well, I don't know. I might have to start worrying like you because we're speaking some real truth on this show. So somebody might come knocking on my door one day. Anyway, let's talk about what just happened in the last 3-4 days in our nation's capital and get your reaction to President Trump testing positive, going to Walter Reed, taking the therapeutics out there that are out for everyone to use. It isn't like he got a special presidential concoction. These are therapeutics that anyone can get. He's back on the mend after 3 days, makes that historic image yesterday on camera, walking up the steps, doing the turn, taking the mask off, and telling Americans, don't let this disease, this virus rather, rule your life. Keep moving forward. I had to be a leader. Of course, immediately the left began their attacks. You just saw us show some hypocrisy from reporters who, of course, yelled at him for taking his mask off, even though they do the same thing as soon as the camera turns off, just like Joe, Nancy, and all of them, they don't wear it. Your reaction to that presidential moment and the left's reaction to the president doing it?
It was truly a presidential moment. It was also a Trumpian moment. Going into World War II, Franklin Roosevelt told us we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Essentially, that's what the president was telling us, that we cannot let our fear of a very real public health threat, even though it's not nearly as virulent or as contagious as early projections suggested it might be. We cannot let that paralyze American life. We most certainly cannot let it paralyze our economy, because if we do, the number of suicides and the number of bankruptcies will outnumber the number of people who die from COVID alone. So, thank God the president is well. I prayed fervently for this. I find it interesting that virtually everyone who attended the debate section, preparation section, session in the map room of the White House has been diagnosed positive. That being Chris Christie, Hope Hicks, Bill Stepien, who, by the way, is an exceptionally able political operative. Rudy Giuliani has tested negative. He was there, but thank God for that. Kayleigh McEnerney, she was in the room. She is also now tested positive. So Kellyanne Conway, yet another. So this is contagious under the right circumstances. And I wish all of those people well in their recovery. But the president is Superman. He's showing that this is the indomitable spirit of Donald Trump. I've known him 40 years. People do not understand his stamina. This is a man who requires 5 hours sleep at night. This is a man who's placing phone calls late into the night and first thing in the morning. He thrives on this job. And Trump under pressure and Trump challenged is the best Donald Trump, because he's real, you see, he's genuine. Sometimes he's audacious. He's not reading a script written by some handler or some manager. He's the real deal. Nobody tells him what to do or when to do it. And the way he has conducted himself during this entire scare with dignity and constantly reassuring the American people, I think has been statesmanlike.
Yeah, I would agree with you. You have to show strength. You have to show leadership. And when you have a nation in crisis, you don't want someone up there gaslighting and scaring the American public. And when folks say on the left, well, Americans could have handled it. Look how we reacted with the toilet paper when this first started. If you'd had a president out there sounding the alarm bell and freaking people out, I think it could have been a disaster, even worse than it has been. But I think this president has done everything he could do. We've heard it from the health professionals. Roger, real quick, they're wrapping me up. Have you spoken with the president since he contracted the virus or since he's been back in the White House at all?
I have not had any communication with him,
Okay.
and therefore I couldn't comment. I imagine he's a little busy right now.
just a smidge. Yeah.
My main focus is on the election, because I think we're looking at a very tight election. I believe that Congresswoman Omar and her staff getting caught with a bunch of phony ballots is the tip of the iceberg,
Yep,
and part of a much, much larger voter theft plan by the Democrats.
Yeah, and we keep digging into those here at OAN, Roger. We keep exposing those voter fraud and ballot harvesting stories, even though the mainstream media says they're made up. And Ilhan Omar and the rest of the Dems claim that it's Republican propaganda when we've got video and evidence and proof that it's happening. Roger Stone, they're giving me the hard rap. We got to run. But, sir, you're welcome on anytime. We appreciate it.
Many thanks.
Yep, you take care. Coming up right here on Real America, he is an openly gay conservative who's been leading a movement to help organize conservatives around the country and clean up communities in need. Scott Pressler joins us in 2 minutes. Don't go away.